Security Halt Podcast. Let's go.
You're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. With a man who's the best. With guns, with knives, with his bare hands. A man who's been trained to ignore pain, ignore weather, to live off the land. Job was to dispose of enemy personnel. To kill. Period. Win by attrition.
Effect. So the ozone oil, the ozone oil is kind of like Neosporin on steroids, and I've just been using it on like skin and little like cuts and wounds and trying to figure out best practices, best recipes. So just something I'm messing around with. This kind of, he's like an ex NASA guy.
Nice, dude.
But
Brian Peters, dude, you are fucking. It's everybody has this assumption whether it's a football player or a soft professional. Oh, you're just big fucking grunts. You're just fucking meat eaters. You're dumb as shit. Whatever. And then you meet us and you realize some of the most well-read dudes are coming from the soft background, whether you're Ranger, Green Beret, or SEAL. And then on the other side, entrepreneurs, guys that are diving into these friggin' huge concepts to help heal, like yourself from the NFL. Like, dude, like, we're not just dumb idiots. It's just like to bang our heads on rocks. Like we have something to contribute here.
Yeah. If anything, dude, we're a better mic or like a bridge to the information because we can come back and speak the language.
Absolutely, man.
Like football players, like my delivery, and particularly if like I'm unfiltered too, because I like to cuss. I like to like press some of like the frameworks in your head or your philosophies, and just make some cracks so we can fill it with like the good information that hopefully sticks. So the story that sticks, and like, the drill is like, if you can't relate to people, like, or you can't understand what influences them, like you're not going to influence them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or change behavior. So it's just like, again, I think like, it's kind of like getting coached by a parent too. Like no kid wants to hear it from their parent or like the teacher or the nerd or whoever. So like, let's be that voice. And that's what I strive for. Then obviously I know what you do and how you speak. And I think it's powerful, the information you share and the vulnerability and all this stuff mixed together to make hopefully like a cocktail guys can like tolerate.
Absolutely, man. The one thing I realized, I'm always wanting to do things that would have been a benefit to me when I was suffering. Because the one thing I needed more than anything, I needed the treatment for the TBI. I needed the treatment for all the things I was going through. But what I really needed was another brother to give me the information, to be able to say like, hey man, you're not going through something abnormal. This is something that's going to happen to all of us. You just need help. And I think that's a powerful thing about having these conversations, being able to say like, dude, I've been through what you're going through. I've been in that performance seat. I've been bashing my head trying to get better. Here's some resources. Here's some things that you can really do to get better, to get back at your prime operating levels, to get back on the field, get back in that team room and be a functioning SEAL, Green Beret, Ranger, Air Force TACP, whatever it is. Like there's truth to the things you're saying. The thing that I want to pause and reflect on is I met you thanks to the Best Defense Foundation at the Stronghold program, which your presentation on everything you bring to bear is just phenomenal. But you're right. It makes sense. Yeah. Rep the set, dog.
I should probably get actually.
Mine's dirty right now, so I couldn't wear mine. But yeah, you're able to speak to the individual in a way that makes sense. And it's not like, not everybody's going to sit down and read James Nestor's book and be like, hell yeah, this makes sense. It made sense to me. But when I brought the book to a lot of guys, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I want to read this shit. But the way everybody was captivated when you were talking is like, this is what we need. Somebody that can take the science, take the data and break it down. And what better way to break it in than how did you get involved in this, man? Like NFL player, I would imagine that you're always looking for cutting edge when it comes to performance. But when did it really start becoming like, okay, like I like this shit. I want to make this my future.
Yeah. So I found the breath world in a really weird way anyway. So right. And this is like 2015 that like the sensory deprivation chamber was like coming along. And I was always like, I always had this, like it eventually became the name of my podcast, Chasing Edges, but I didn't get the opportunity I want initially out of college, like Northwestern. And so I went through arena. I got cut from the UFL. I got cut from the CFL, then eventually played for 2 years up there and then got my opportunity back through the NFL. So but like the first couple failures, like I don't know if it was like fear of like, I just don't want to go to the real world because I think I'm built for something different and
Yeah.
something new and better and curious and like growth oriented. But I also knew I could play. I got a few like small tastes of like rookie mini camps in the NFL where it's like, no, I can play. And I just trusted it. And I kept learning and learning and learning. And I had and my system started there because I started with Dr. Eric Serrano, who kind of like my Puerto Rican dad, but he but he's like us because what I, again, like you already hit stuff before we even get into the finding of the breath stuff that I want to hit just really quick, just because it was just in my head.
Yeah.
But because it's obviously easy to talk to guys after they retire, it's really hard to get to guys while they're in the weeds or like they still think they're invincible and all those kind of things.
Yep.
And however you translate the message that everybody's always going through shit, it doesn't matter what the armor and the mask looks like. But I like quotes. You'll hear me like plug stuff in. And obviously you heard my presentation, but like one of my favorite things is when you're trying to cut through to somebody is that because like everybody just wants to hear like whether it's being a veteran or you're in the NFL locker room or still in the unit or whatever you're doing, in that sense, like once somebody else says, yeah, I experienced that too, or yeah, I'm going through that too, boom, let's go. Conversation in the sauna drop, like everything goes where it needs to go. It goes deep and gets off this surface level crap. But I just try and like conceptualize and make logic points with quotes. And it's my one of my favorites is that pain is an adhesive. And if you've been through it, you can connect with others.
Yeah.
And but you can't like most people can like subjectively understand or like, oh, assume that you went through pain. But like once you get somebody actually identifying and talking about specific things, it's just like it's magic in that sense. But I don't think people are vulnerable enough while they're still in the scenario. But like you'll talk about the pain of a workout or the pain of potentially an injury downrange or in football. But even when you're in that, like you don't talk past pain past that. So anyways, I just think it's cool once you start talking about share your pain. Like pain's cool. Like I like scars and imperfections. Like nobody wants perfect's fucking trash anyways.
Yep.
Anyways, I don't want to get too far.
No, it's so true, man. It's so true. It's common humanity. Like one thing that I realized, you look at individuals that are in a different profession than you and you think, oh, they have nothing in common with me. They do it, it happens within the military. Guys that look up to Green Berets or Rangers, like, I have nothing in common with these guys. They're the best of the best. Brother, we're humans too. We did the same thing to NFL players. Like, oh, there's nothing. I have nothing in common with these guys. Wait a second. I've had my brain rattled a few times downrange. So has Brian.
But it's like in that realm, like it's beating stereotypes across the board because it's like not just the dumb athlete, even though I'd say I have like I set low expectations. I say I have a small brain and I speak football, but in that same sense, like, why do you pursue like different capabilities anyways? Like I always just like instinctively wanted to be around interesting people.
Yep.
And so like what captivates interest, and another stupid quote, but like, we don't go to the circus to like see a bear. We don't go to the circus to see a unicycle. We go to see a bear ride a unicycle. And that's the soft guy or the football player that also speaks philosophy, physiology, or maybe he can woodwork, or maybe he can maybe he's a legitimate like fighter, who knows? But like, I like people that are capable of a lot of things, and like, you don't have to be a master in everything, but like having capability and paradox, I think it just helps you bounce back through life. Cause I think at the end of the day, we all just, if we can identify with our capability instead of like the titles that we held, like football and that kind of thing, and understand, like, don't identify with anything that can change, like life gets a little bit like easier and more graceful to transition, because you'll always have your capability. But if you don't invest time in capability and you just keep like, there's benefits to investing fully in the mastery of being a warrior, being a football player for sure. But I don't think that is like reflected in peace outside of the sport or the profession.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I can finish my breath story now if you want. But
yeah,
it's fun, dude. It's like I was like, and this is where curiosity is like a principle, and like what should be a principle in everybody's life, but it's a principle in my life, because I was just chasing, like in my head, chasing edges for all these advantages to like hopefully get to the NFL and then eventually stay and then be a starter, captain, whatever I could be.
Yeah.
And so I'd already gone through the workouts and the sups, and I was just looking for recovery edges. So I started like the red light and all those things around that time. But this is when the sensory deprivation chamber came out. And I was like, all right, I'll go try that. And just so happens JJ Watt built one into his bathroom. And like we were going over there to like play some pool basketball or something. And I was like, hey, can I hit your tub beforehand? And I got in there. I was supposed to be in there for 90 minutes. And I've never sat and like alone with my thoughts, never never meditated.
Yeah.
And then because like if you don't know what the sensory deprivation chamber is, it's like densely whatever influenced water with salt. So you're floating, it's around body temp, no light, no sound. It's built to basically kind of let the nervous system and the mind unclench because it's like cutting down and subtracting input. Just to give you a thing, but it's like you're in a like dark floating box, like space kind of, but it's not cold. And so anyways, I thought I was rotating and I got out after like 35, 40 minutes and I was just like, oh, okay, like what happened? And then the Texans actually started paying for the chamber. But after that, I read all the research on why it's good. And just as like a caveat of like really avoidance of like talking to myself and avoidance of my own problems, all I had in the chamber was my watch. And so I started holding my breath and just like got competitive with that. Cause I'm hyper competitive and in that realm. But so I get out of there after my first chamber that the team was paying for. And I Google, how do I hold my breath longer? And it was Wim Hof and free diving. And this is like, now that like you're getting into like January 2016. So like I've been in this for 8 years now, like the breath world. I've been coaching full time for about 4 or 5, but perfect storm. And like, this is what eventually like just pushed me into coaching it. Cause I started coaching it while I started coaching some NHL guys and kids while I was still playing.
Oh, wow.
But perfect storm. We got a new strength coach from the Denver Broncos, had like won a Super Bowl with them. And he was like, dude, he's a great leader, very intense, calculated, like the most efficient I've ever seen somebody put like 90 guys through a weight room in 100 or in an hour and 10 minutes. It was unbelievable what we got done. He's an awesome leader. But through FMS and NordBord and all this sports science testing, he determined that our NFL football team was physically unfit to run due to asymmetry and weakness.
Damn.
So we spent our first 3 weeks of OTAs not running, and he got up there and gave this whole like State of the Union. I don't give a fuck if you're JJ Watt or DeAndre Hopkins or whatever. If you're running, you're cut. Me and the GM are on the same page as saying so, but people didn't run. And so this is about 3-4 months after I got into the breath stuff. And so initially I was like holding my breath for a minute and a half. And then I started doing CO2 tables from free diving and I was getting into Wim Hof stuff. And I like, by the time we came back to running, I was holding my breath for about 4.5 minutes, that range.
Damn.
And so, but this is where it just like black and white, I go, oh, there's something here. When we started running, we had like a light, like kind of speed day, some sleds. And then he had this whole, like, you got to be a dog at the scratch line kind of fierceness competitor. And so the next day he tried to bury us with conditioning. But what I noticed very fast, and granted, I was doing the wrong breath stuff, but I was loosely like respiratory strength training and CO2 tolerance training. Mm-hmm. And dude, by rep like 5 or 6, guys were starting to like die out. And I was up running with all like the skinny butts, the DBs and the receivers. And I was like 240, 245 at the time. And so, and this is why I coach the breath as a language, as you saw in that realm, because it's what our body speaks and we see it. And we know when there's blood in the water, when somebody starts panting like a dog and eyes drop and fatigue and all these emotions get shown in the body. So I go, oh shit, like there's something to this breath stuff. And just me doing that Google is not enough. And like also at the same time, one of my buddies that I went to high school with, like washed out of like minor league baseball and he was kind of depressed and he found Wim Hof to like jump him out of his depression. And like, and then this eventually led to us starting a company around it. But we ended up paying to have Brian McKenzie, who's a legend in the breath world. And like, I'm still playing. Like, all I want is like, just give me PEDs, like give me some breath stuff that's going to improve performance. And really quick, Brian was an awesome mentor. And I just think like great humans, like they learn the learner. And so like, we couldn't even start talking about all the intricacies of breath training. He gave me nuggets and breadcrumbs and protocols. But at the end of the day, he had to identify what else in my life stressed me out, not just football, girls, family, whatever, because the whole system's interconnected. And then PJ Nessler and the people at XPT, like Laird and Gabby, they started feeding me information, and then Dr. Belisa Vranich and all these people, like out of the kindness of their heart, like I'm not paying them at this time and things like that. Besides BMAC, but in that realm, I got this information and saw it reflect in my ability to execute under stress, like under pressure, because I used to be out there. So like Northwestern background, Caucasian American in that sense, like I was lost in this identity and these thought patterns that I need to be the smartest guy out there at all times. And so like I thought I was trying to be Luke Kuechly when really I'm actually just a dog chasing a car. Like I'm really good at executing and reacting as long as I have like a minimal effective dose of preparation mentally.
Yeah.
But what was happening is, because I coach like the respiration rate and the heart rate as a wind chime. Like when the wind chime gets crazy, you lose the ability to make some of those decisions under stress. So once I got my physiology under control and stopped being something I tried to be something I wasn't, my execution went doubled. Like my efficiency, like as far as like grade outs in football, like and then only to realize that the whole market for this thing, like the industry didn't exist outside of like Wim Hof trainers.
Yeah.
And there's people that like, even like the Patrick McCown, who like, and all these people influenced James Nestor's book in that realm. And James Nestor did a great job in Breath of showing like the before and after and the contrast of nasal versus mouth, and then storytelling some like the jaw structure and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Really cool. Book Jaws breaks that down really, really clear. I can't remember, it's a long doctor name, but besides the point. And you get all this information and you start running tests, and I was trying to do, and then dude, like I had I wanted to add breath holds to movement. And so I was running and walking and swimming underwater and like scaring the hell out of the PTs in Houston's locker room. And dude, at one point I had like $15,000 bet on me that I couldn't go back down in our swimming lane pool in Houston. Like it was fun, but like I just kept wanting as much to improve my performance. And I was still very generated towards the physical outcome of that side of the world. But eventually, like particularly as football kind of ended around like 2018, 2019 for me. But even though we were coaching at the time up in Minneapolis, and I was coaching remote while I was still in Houston. Yeah. But when my identity got shook, and it basically like the tools I had left were like my football tools and like all this information from SUPs to training. But like I eventually found that like my niche was this connection point of like breath physiology. And then I always loved like the cold tub stuff. I did the wrong stuff for a long time there too. Since like 2012, I was doing 20 minutes up to my neck in the cold. Damn. And I didn't that was from a doctor in Arizona, John Thoma, but I thought he had science behind it. Really, he just saw like Wim Hof and some people do it. He goes, Brian's tough enough to do that. He'll do it. And but in my own sense, like everybody thought I was the crazy motherfucker in the locker room, because this dude is just like Iceman, and then you have the other guys like screaming when they get it up to their waist, So it was like it was part of my own armor in that sense. But so eventually I was able to filter out that I'm a like people pleasing big heart human too, like learning that side of myself and how that translates to business and what I want to truly do. But I spent like I was coaching, but like I spent those like first 2 years like on a roller coaster of like what the fuck am I doing? It's just like that depressive to the high, and like get a new client and then lose a client, and like I was experiencing like the ups and downs of football and business, but also like transitioning my identity and learning how to really like strategies that I coach to like military athletes now. Cause some people send me guys transitioning, and it's like, okay, what philosophies work? And I've been through all the sports psych and philosophy books, and that I think like fuel and like pertain to what I do and what I don't do. And so now I have like kind of like quick recipes and quotes and strategies to try and change behavior and change feel. And like, really, like you heard it in my presentation a little bit, but to give guys agency over how they feel, so we can change how you feel, and you can go make better decisions and have better behavior, and not let feeling and like lethargic physiology and stuff dictate your ability to take action. But that's kind of like I guess a decent summary of how I got into it. But it's a lot of rabbit holes in the world, but there's so many simple principles, as you like saw from the presentation, that it's just like nobody taught us this. They need to teach us the basics of the breath, and then understand that like psychology can be unresolved physiology and vice versa. We can think ourselves into very bad physiology. And
dude, hell yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, especially with transition. You hit it on the nail on the head right there. Like, guys don't understand and they don't see the connection between the two. You're going through an identity crisis. You're going through lack of purpose. You're removing your entire identity and struggling to find a new one. And they don't understand that you still have your breath. You can still connect to that. And seeing the guys at the program that have never done it before do that cold water immersion, go into the cold tub the first time, and then have that experience of not freaking out and being coached to that. That is one of the most rewarding things to see as somebody that's like, oh shit, okay, he's getting it. He's figuring it out.
Dude, it's like that's like people, because some people get it twisted and think he's a sauna nice guy, and somebody asked me people for sauna Rex or cold tub Rex and things like that. Like that's just like the icing on the cake of a workshop I do, and I found that was my favorite recovery modality to wash out soreness and sleep better.
Yep.
So I started doing the 3 minutes in the cold tub, heavy sweat, 3 minutes, heavy sweat, dunk, and go like carry it out. And it's like it's like an active recovery day, whatever. Like just for feel and recovery, awesome. I get to share it, cool. But it ended up being the cold tub is this awesome place. I call it my stadium or my range or whatever you want to call it. But it's a stressor. I can like as a like breath physiology exposure coach, like I can stress you out by like I can attack you verbally. I guess that's a new one I haven't brought up. But but really I can use cold water and suffocation. And like those are fears in the human brain and the body. And like who knows where the cold fear comes from? Like obviously it's primal for like just body like physiology survival. But it's also our parents told us from a young age, hey, don't go outside without your hat and your gloves, like you'll get sick and die. And so we have no mental framework for resilience to cold. And then also now you start attaching like stressful events in cold and reframing those where like obviously buds and seals and like at some point in your selection process or your training, you probably got your ass kicked by the cold and like had to have that personal battle and or like the crazy effects of like actual like hypothermia. But besides the point, that why I like coaching the cold tub and using like the Best Defense Foundation retreat, the Stronghold, like they're so open and want to have everybody help in the capacity they want to help. And for me to have potentially 3 to 5 days to have you execute cold in the morning and like get the repetition of the behavior and kind of track the feelings. And I also don't like to give people just like vanilla stuff in the cold. If you like this, cool. Everybody's different. But the goal initially is to take you from, because this is going to be a depiction of your transition anyways. But the cold tub, majority of people, I'll say 99% of people, because I'm still the same. I don't like getting in the cold tub. They have some like sense or feeling, or I can usually visually see it in like the breath or how they talk and things like that. But like they have some hesitation and anxiety, performance anxiety before they get in the cold tub. In essence, like before that, and I'm getting into like the certainty, uncertainty, unknown part of the brain where it's like, you don't know how you're going to feel in there if it's like your first time. And we all have that anxiety when we try anything new, any new career, any new hobby. And it's like, okay, like if you're being a victim of your physiology there and you're letting your breath get short and this wind chime get a little crazy, like, again, we're just trying to protect like the decision-making and all these things in the brain. But I start coaching before you get in the cold. Like some of the like the military guys, you guys are just like, fuck it, let's go, hopping in and stuff. And you're still taking the coaching, but like it's also like that's another strategy. A lot of people don't have that fucking DNA to say, hey, like I'm scared of this, I don't want to do this, but I'm gonna go now because I already know that like waiting doesn't do anything for me. Yeah. And sometimes we forget that as we transition from military and sport, that like part of what got us to where we got is because we're doers and goers, you know. But there's so many nuances here that I like to talk about. But to go from that and also have guys struggle in there the first time, as long as like, I don't care if you get to the 3-minute mark or not, but I want you to have a metric in there and understand the slower the breath, the safer the brain, and that's the tool. And like, obviously we do better strategies like in, nose, out, mouth, like have like 2-to-1 exhale to inhale ratio and progress it. But and then you know, like my routine by the third round, like we'll intro like just a little dunk and you're done after the second round. But I like to have guys try and hold their breath for 5, 10, 30 seconds on the last round, so that look at the amount of progress we made in 45 minutes where you were scared and you fought, like you were in a fist fight with the cold tub the first time, and then you found some peace under the water on the third time, and then you feel like a bag of money, and there's like all these awesome endorphins and like light touches of adrenaline stuff going on, where it's like, okay, where else can this translate in my life?
Yes.
But it's just that sense of accomplishment that we're chasing, or that, again, it's just like cracks in your framework, because like a lot of us don't have confidence as we start the next thing, but it's like, look what I did in 45 minutes. What can I do in 45 days, you know? And it's like, but it's addressing the anxiety on every step you're going to take in that 45 days. It's the same thing. Like, do what you're good at, like attack the problems, attack the weaknesses. And it's not weaknesses really. I'm just trying to equip guys with tools to have agency over self. And then now it's just on your brain on what you want to do, kind of thing. But
Dude, so true, man. It's being able to give somebody a tool they can utilize on their own, and then help them understand the framework. And it's not just about getting in a cold tub and then going to a hot sauna. It's deeper than that, but it's hard to explain to individuals. They're like, oh yeah, I could do that. Maybe I could do that. It's like, no, not if you can do that. Why would this be beneficial to you? That's what you have to really stop and think about. It's not just about getting in. And watching Joe Rogan do the same thing on his show, it's a deeper meaning, and it has a huge impact on your life when you're going through something tough. Because when you do hard things, and this is the thing that sucks about modern culture, especially in the United States, it's all about comfort seeking. Absolutely everything that we're bombarded with media from the moment we wake up till we go to sleep is being comfort, whether it's your food or what you choose to do for your recreation. And this is something that it can help you ease into being in discomfort. And that's what we need more of in these days.
yeah, and I mean, you're firing right down my alley right now. But yeah, but I also like, again, like education and like the right, like people telling you the right things at the right time always kind of help too.
Yeah.
And kind of like my overarching recipe when you start talking like actual like progress in life, it's like grit and grace in that realm. But some of that grace comes from education of what's what's going on in the body, because like conceptually, like in like loose summary here, but like, why do we enjoy comfort? Well, it used to be very rare that we got to that point. Like usually like we're out there hunting, like fighting, doing whatever you have to do. It's very rare that we had food, water, shelter, like good weather, all these things wrapped into one, to where like, okay, yeah, the body, when it is comfortable, some of the stimulus says in our body, rest, like stay on the couch. All these things basically say like, wait, like save up your energy for the next like fight, fuck, hunt, like whatever it ends up being, you know? Like, but like I just think that you give person the grace that like, you also have to know who you're fighting. You're fighting your physiology that's telling you, okay, comfort's good, because your body wants certainty. Like your brain and your body crave certainty. And that's why like part of the cold tub stuff and the sauna stuff, when you use them by themselves, it's timing this circadian rhythm and and like, I don't like, it's hard for me. Like you saw me present, but like, it's hard for me to talk about any of these awesome discomfort things if like, you're not talking about some of the comfort that's already in our control, where it's like, we can talk about all these breathing tactics to manage stress in the moment, but it's like, if you're not breathing right at rest, you can't breathe right in your stress. So like, and I talk about sleep hygiene, and like some of the easiest low hanging fruit in sleep hygiene is like an anchor wake up time, mouth tape if you can, like disclaimer on people with like central sleep apnea and things like that. But it's because the nose sends a parasympathetic tone to the brain. It makes you breathe slower. It amplifies sleep and oxygenation and all these things. So it's like those, but it's also learning how to take away light, because that's the circadian rhythm that we're also playing on with the cold in the morning. So it becomes a lifestyle. But like when our bodies and our physiology have consistency, that's when you start to see like hormones, like mood and things like that fall in sync. And that's where I think it's important to like address like your system as a whole. And I don't want people to tackle too much. I'd like you to just start with the cold, but also like respect your battery, and like everybody needs to sleep. And like as a breath coach, there's like slow breathing tactics to help you fall asleep. There's mouth tape. There's mouthpieces that hook the jaw to keep your jaw from falling back and snoring. There's wraps. There's nasal strips. There's things like that to help aid that. But in the morning, and like I don't know how, like everybody's kind of on the Daddy Huberman train with the sunlight in the morning, like that.
Oh yeah.
But like I've been doing it for a decade, and I will swear by it. I like my female athletes. They fall out of like their cycles, like female cycles, and you get them back with consistent physiological input, like the sun in the morning, like an anchor wake up time, and the cold just like an amplifier here, and everything falls in sync. And like I have like like overarching remedies for like hormonal health. It's like sun, sleep, and no stress. And like the no stress thing is not just like the perceived social stress and the financial stress, but it's also like environmental, chemical, like all the stuff that's on our body and we're inhaling, whatever. But besides, like if you can start to like take care of sun and sleep like there, then we teach you some tools to manage stress and feel, and then we'll progress down all the rabbit holes. But I think that's really important. But the cold tub, not to get away from the practical use of it, because I think people overcomplicate it or they hype it up for the science and the podcasts and whatever it is. How do you feel after you get out of the cold tub? Like that's what we're trying to get like into the discomfort for after, and like in that sense. But it's like I call cold tub nature's cup of coffee, nature's pre-workout, nature's caffeine. But how do you feel after you get out of the cold? Awake, alert, focused, energized, alive, like great things. It's nature's caffeine. Use it as such. So I use it like pre-workout at 3:00. I use it in the mornings. I use it if I'm dragging ass doing emails. I just go like, and you don't have to go out there and do 3 minutes in my breathing stuff or like some breathing pattern. Just use the cold for what it is. And then we'll get better at controlling the breath in there and that kind of thing. But the circadian rhythm we're playing with is to get the epidermis cold, because like part of the body temp circadian rhythm, it gets its coldest around 2 a.m. and starts to heat up. Part of what wakes us up on top of the cortisol. And there's a bunch of stuff going on with adenosine and stuff too. But besides the point, that temperature is what we're trying to ride. And if you get cold really quick in the morning, the internal furnace jacks up and you can start getting a little like better pushes of some of these like endorphins we're chasing, like in the realm of like serotonin. And so, because naturally occurring melatonin is from serotonin. So if you get sunlight and you touch the cold for a little bit, like we're just chasing all these awesome benefits.
Yeah. It's something you pointed out that's really important is we are bombarded, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a social media influencer you follow, it's a very well-known thing. And as far as getting into a cold tub, but we don't stop to think of the benefits of it. We don't get enough of like, hey, you see the facade of it, guys jumping into a cold tub, and then you very surface level understanding of it. It's like, stop chasing all the data points, all the different shows, and just start doing it. Like cold shower. Like people complain about it all the time. But if you've been down south, if you've deployed with a soft unit, you've dealt with cold showers. And it's the same thing you were talking about. You wake up, you get your cold shower, and you feel energized. You're ready for the day. We rotate back home, and it's like, all right, steaming hot. Like, dude, just give it a chance. Be willing to, and you don't have to go out there and buy the $2,000 cold tub. You don't have to start there. Start with a cold shower, man. These little things of discomfort have a huge benefit for us. Like, we can start with baby steps.
Yeah, and like I always say, start pathetically small. And like I do think the cold showers, like if you're kind of like north of the Mason-Dixon, your water will stay cold enough, like in the summertime a little bit too. But obviously it gets cold in the winter. But in that same sense, like, start with 30 seconds in there. Start with 3 spins, or I use breaths as a metric. Like go in the cold shower and breathe 10 times. And then just try and make the breath slower and the time longer. But I think cold shower is harder than a cold tub all day, like still to this day. And so like, I think people sleep on that correlation. Well, I don't have the fancy thing. Well, you have the harder thing, And so, and then there's like the blue collar cold tubs where like you just buy $100 trough from Tractor Supply. And then like, if you already have a deep freezer, if not, go to Walmart and get a $200 deep freezer, 2 5-gallon buckets and fill them with water bottles and freeze those. And so all in, you have like a $300 cold tub that like once you leave the water bottles in for 15 minutes, gets just as cold as the other ones usually. And it's just like, okay, there's always scalable options there, but I just want people to use it. And that's why I like being at those retreats where it's like we get to use it for 3 days and get to improve tactics and not I just like to see guys stop fighting it and like basically kind of breathe and exhale into it. so that it can be enjoyable, because the results are enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's easier to grab an energy drink. And don't get me wrong, I love my caffeines and nicotines and stuff, but that we're chasing the same thing, and there's no downfall,
Yeah.
Some people argue over like levels of like stress and anxiety and adding cortisol and all those kind of things, but I still wouldn't remove that. I think the breath eventually teaches the intersection away from those things. So it's just kind of where I go against some of what people sell as far as like information. But because I think like humans, like, because it's almost like, because I operate a lot in the world of CO2 tolerance is really important. And what makes us like awesome, usually high performers in military and sports, is we have an awesome negative feedback tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can take criticism, and kind of what we talked about earlier is one of the most fucking special things we had was explicit communication to solve problems.
Yep.
You can't walk into like a real estate company and say, fucking Janine, do your fucking job and sell the fucking house, No, you have to say, hey, can you maybe get the contract in a little sooner? Like, you did good, but like you cost us the house. Like, that doesn't get results. And you guys obviously had so much more on the line between like real life and death execution. And in sports, like, and even in the physiology, like responses, like our life and death is winning and losing, because like that's still like our money, our lifestyle, all that kind of thing too. But just it's scaled, and so and that's why I there's lots of similarities between military and football, the stress, the transition, but the intensity that you guys experience and the longevity. That's why I think like when you start looking at some of these modalities to approach, I think you guys need it. I think we all need it, but like, that's why I like to get all these little nuggets out there, because like once you can transition out of these longer, like chronic stress states you stayed in, they're so like these simple modalities are so impactful. Dude, and so
absolutely. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I want to talk about and go back to is we forget and pick up breathing techniques that are extremely harmful. Like the amount of times that I wasn't aware of it. Email breathing. I didn't even know what the fuck that was. Yeah. And then once I became aware of it, I looked at everybody in the team room and guys were doing it. And it's important to also point out, like, look, sleep apnea, there's two different types, and you definitely don't want to try to mouth tape, but I didn't understand the benefits of using mouth tape or talking to a sleep coach until I got, towards the end of my career, and understanding like, oh, everybody snores. Everybody on a fucking team snores. I didn't realize how harmful that was. Like, what are some things that we can do right now today to work on our breathing as human beings right now in the military, or just anybody on the street?
Yeah. So initially I like to start everybody with awareness, because to your point with people call it email apnea or email holds. It's really just a response to like short stressors. And it's just like we're kind of waiting for our brain to process and tell our physiology what to do a little bit. Yeah. But when do you default away from like I'll just give a fast track on the system just so that you kind of like know, like, because I think a lot of people overcomplicate the breath world, and or they don't know what all these buttons are doing. Yep. So like regardless of whatever breath coach you're listening to, hopefully they're educated on like this very, very clean split when you look at the research. But if you look at meditation, if you look at Wim Hof, holotropic breathing, any of these down reg protocols at night, you'll see this pattern be day and night. And I'll kind of tell you the priority system too once we get through all 8 buttons. But like, it's very simple. Like, it's so freaking simple. Everybody, like, it's not like some breath coach, like there's really great coaches, like the high end breath coaches that, yeah, we'll optimize you for mechanical function and VO2 max and like where are your lactate thresholds and stuff. That's not even close to what I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about like you at rest, how you should be breathing all day, every day. And then through these light stressors of life. And then like we can talk about higher heart rate stuff for like performance and down regulating on the helicopter or something, like whatever you want down the road. But like in simplest form, just look at your system at rest. And these are the directions that your physiology is taking you in respiration. So so you have a nose mouth, you have the inhale, exhale, you basically have like location of movement and like volume of the lung, and you have pace, fast and slow. That's it. What other, like, you can say there's like sprinkles on the freaking cupcake with humming and hissing and like different like variants of sound, because you can break this down to like loud and quiet as well, because those influence your nervous system, or like how like panting versus like a very calm, quiet, almost unsensed breath. Your body, again, that's why all this stuff simplifies to a wind chime. Like if the wind chime's calm, the brain's calm, the body's calm. But we don't realize that life hasn't built us to be great breathers. We sit a lot. Maybe women, they've told us to suck it in for our whole lives, whatever it ends up being. But we also have a lot of unnatural stressors, lights, like sounds, depending on where you live. All this stuff can influence this nervous system, and it will trigger, in essence, you either go up and basically like volume up on your physiology or volume down. Okay, at rest, breathing through your nose is down regulatory, parasympathetic tones of the brainstem. Breathing through your mouth is up reg. And that's why I start everywhere, like most of my athletes, with sleep. Because like if we also like let's be respectful of everybody's time in that realm. I don't want you thinking about every breath all day. Let's start with the breaths that you are unconscious of while you sleep. If we can get those more towards functional breathing, better oxygenation, potentially more nasal cavity space, all this stuff ends up being beneficial. So I start there, but it's just because of that input button, like up volume, down volume, because the mouth dehydrates you 30% faster and all these things too. Like there's more detriments to like the microbiome in the mouth and all these like bacteria and stuff too. But anyways, that's why it's like first three questions in the breath world for me, like, because I attack rest breathing and sleep breathing first. You wake up with a dry mouth. Do you wake up to piss a lot at night? Like as long as you're not drinking like a gallon of water before bed. And does your significant other, your buddies and roommates tell you that you snore and have sleep apnea? And so like, let's solve that problem first. And you heard the example, but we just don't, a lot of people I just don't think know how they truly feel. They might need a watch or a Whoop or something to tell them how they feel. It's like, if you plugged your phone in at night, because we're all phone people now, if you plugged in your phone at night and woke up and your phone was at 60% battery, even though you charged it all night, like you'd solve that fucking problem. I'd get a new phone or a new charger, you know? And so, okay, we don't do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we need to understand what our energy levels are, because like if you have a full battery, that means more energy and effort towards the hobbies, loved ones, being a good parent, coach, whatever business you're going into now. Like even if you're still active, like I think it's super important. And so like that's why I solve sleep first. And like I want to get you through the first night of mouth tape. I start with mouth tape. If guys are still finding a way to snore there, because their jaws dropping back, and like some of these brands are stretchy tape. Like you get, I don't want to attack any brands, but they're kinesio based tape. They're stretchy. Those are fine if you're using them properly, which means not properly by my definition, better in that realm. But because we want this lock to be rigid. Mm-hmm. And when I started using some of the stretchy tapes, my jaw would still drop, because I'm a person, even though I'm a breath coach that has been doing this for a fucking like mouth taping for a decade. If I don't tape, I snore, and I sleep like dog shit. It's seen in all my recovery scores. But in that realm, I still found with the stretchy tape, my jaw would still drop and I would still snore, and like my sleep just wasn't as good. And then even on some of the other stretchy tapes too, I would still inhale through the mouth, even though nothing was coming in. Then I'd breathe in through the nose. And so like, it just, in my opinion, I want a rigid line. Like, so like just really quick coaching points. Like if you have the stretchy tape, I use 3M micropore tape. You don't have to pay $1 a piece. You can just buy it on Amazon and have 2 years in one box for $20. But like beards are different. There's variables there, but like I pull the lips in so you don't tape the lips, but it also creates a tighter seal. You got to wash your face beforehand so there's no oils in the tape stick. But I go directly across, and I have 2 other pieces. And this, you can do this with the stretchy tape too. Pin on the bottom part first and leverage up. I want to just think you're trying to keep that jaw as close, like the jaw as close to the top of the top jaw or your teeth as you can. And so like, that's a lot to just say I was going to make this simple, but get through the night. So that means like, but also this causes anxiety in some people and air hunger. Mm-hmm. So, and then this leads into other skills, but like tape your mouth 30 minutes before bed. And like, you can do this when you have like a stuffy nose and things too. But our brain only cares if we're alive or dead. Doesn't really care how we compensate. And so in that realm, when you have a stuffy nose, you'll mouth breathe. So be aware of that. But now force yourself to breathe in through your nose for 10 minutes. I bet it clears up 50, 70+%. And so to take away some of this anxiety for sleep, tape early, get some space, because the nasal cavity, like I can't remember if Nestor talked about it in breath, but like it's like if you don't use it, you lose it kind of space too. And so you need like, and this is where like if you can't get through the night with sleep because you have air hunger, or you don't feel like you can get enough air in, you have to start going on walks and doing light cardio, breathing in through your nose, and have that more intense air start to like stimulate this sensitive membrane to create space. But like all of my goals are to get you sleeping right first. And that's just the nose mouth and pick up. And like, I'll get back to my system, because if not, I'm going to go crazy on this. But I just want people to get through the first night. So if you have to use Afrin, if you have to use the Breathe Right or the nasal opening strips or the bull rings, I just want you to get through the first night so you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, after that, it should become non-negotiable, or you just become like ignorant to the effects, and you don't want to do it. It's just laziness at that point.
I was going to ask you about those, if they were bullshit, if they're actually worked. All those new strips that are supposed to help your nasal breathing.
Again, they make it easier, yes. And like, because you can even just feel like, obviously if you actually push open the sinus, but like try and push like on your cheeks and separate, you'll feel that it's the same thing they're going for. And like they have the magnet ones now, and because there's a bunch of products out there, they help. And like I'm fine using those to like initially get into it, but I initially want you to have that space anyways. Mm-hmm. And like maybe you have like this is where it gets into the nuances of the world, deviated septums, broken noses, things like that. But I would like, again, I just want to get you through the night, but that doesn't mean wear it all day, because they always argue over more oxygen to the brain and all this. And there's a lot of benefits to nasal breathing. Cleans the air, humidifies the air. Again, part of your, like a massive part of your immune system starts there. And if you're going to default and be a mouth breather, you're losing part of that defense on your system. It's anatomically a lower breath, which gets to the biggest part of the lung, which is the bottom of the lung, where the gravities put the most oxygen exchange. You can trigger nitric oxide, which is why the boys take pre-workout and Jack 3D and NO Explode. It's for the pumps. You want that light pump while you're walking around to get blood to the hands and the brain, and those things too. So yes, being able to breathe into the nose is beneficial, but like that nose thing at some point, like up to a certain point, can be a crutch, because I'd like you to have that space anyways. But if you have the deviated septums and things like that, wear it. Again, at the end of the day, I hope you nasal breathe. Like if you want to use that, cool. Initially, it is a remedy to try and get through the first couple nights or the first couple months, whatever it ends up being. But eventually, I'd like you to not have to need that, because you have enough respiratory strength. You have enough like nasal space. Because again, like it's not just your nose. Like now you're talking like cheek to cheek, and then nose to back of the throat is your sinus. So it's just like, okay, that's my nasal cavity. That's way bigger than I thought it was. And if this is inflamed because it hasn't been used, because everything in nature is if you rest, if you rest, you rust. If you're stagnant, you rot. But if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's the same reason why I push every human too to like lift weights, because you're talking bone density and tendon ligament thickness anyways. But back to breathing. But you think that's enough for sleep for the boys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So just like try and get there, because one of all we're chasing is tone. Like if you can tell your body rest, digest, recover, parasympathetic tone to the brainstem from the nose, as opposed to fight, flight, and freeze from the mouth. It's just like breathing through your mouth while you sleep, on top of just the higher chance that the jaw is going to drop and an impediment to the airways for snoring and sleep apnea and stuff. But in general, like that is one of the like quickest like remedies for a lot of my people who like wake up multiple times to piss, because like it can aid in this like process where you can go through quick paralysis into sleep, but like sometimes your digestive system won't like shut down. So most of the people that have that problem, some people there's these weird windows at like 2 and 4 that will always wake up to, and like this won't always remedy that. So I just want to give disclaimers. But back to the system, just so you know what's going on all day in your breathing system while you're resting. Like obviously I ripped off like 10 benefits to the nose right there. Mouth is really just for like work capacity. It's really for like digestion and communication primarily, but like work capacity, dumping CO2 or having to get it in, but you have to earn that kind of respiration. Because like the overarching concept is like respiration should match metabolic demand. And that's where you start to like, as I get through this like language or this remote control of the system, you'll see why the Wim Hofs and the holotropic things can be dangerous. Or what they're trying to like stimulate in the system. They're just jacking you up when you actually think they kind of push that it's like a peaceful training modality. But anyways, so nose, mouth, like nose is down regulatory, mouth is up regulatory. After that, you have inhale, exhale, like very simple. When you inhale, diaphragm flattens, like people don't know that the diaphragm's asymmetrical, but mostly that's because you have the heart and then the liver. So it's like fits in that system well. But like when you inhale, when it pulls the lungs open, it also is pulling the heart open. And like this is part of the influence that respiration matches or helps influence heart rate. And like obviously this gets into low resting heart rate, HRV, things like that. And it's not like the only thing like operating the heart. Obviously it's a muscle that has like connection to the brain as well. And it's part of the autonomic nervous system, whatever. I'm ranting, but in that sense, because like really what's happening is like the heart's getting big. Like there's this little cascade of stuff happening inside the heart where it's getting more volume in that sense. And it's so everything's moving slower. So the heart speeds up. Mm-hmm. And then this is like an oversimplification, but like then when you're on the exhale, as it's getting smaller, blood's moving faster, so it slows down, and that's really what's happening. But like to us military and small brain football players in that sense, I just say inhale accelerates the heart rate, pulls the heart open, exhale slows the heart rate. And so that's called, if you want to like get into this, it's respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It's a real thing. It's freaking science. I'm not a doctor, but like this is all very simple shit.
Yeah, you're not a doctor yet.
Yeah, not a doctor yet. No, I learned I still have extended like education from the NFL, so daddy's gonna go back to school.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. No, but like you guys inspired me for some of that, like how you guys are continuing to educate yourself so you can get back to the community. Like obviously I've done that from like a certification and guinea pig aspect of trial and error with myself, and then obviously just getting my hands on any book and any human that is like a master in this realm. But like if that's going to be a limiting factor on me getting around more humans, teams, guys into it, get on base. Cause I always kind of butt heads there a little bit too. So just like, if the letters make me access more humans and help, let's go. And, but that talk in the sauna, the talk we had in the sauna, that like the connection the boys were all having, like that was just like that was my light bulb that, hey, what the fuck am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying and I'm doing, but like there's more levers that I can, and I'm always going to chase education anyways. But
it's so true, man. It's one of the things where like, hey, your pedigree, once you get out, maybe can get you in to talk to one person. But if I really want to have influence, if I really want to help, like, hey, got my peer-to-peer certification, got my mindfulness coach certification. That's great. But you need the letters. You need the letters to make impact and make change. And I tell everybody, like, you don't know what you're doing? Be willing to explore that option. You have benefits. You earned that shit, big dog. You earned it all day. Be brave enough to look at the unknown, because we're all guys that are people of service. We are. I highly believe it. Deep down, anybody that wants to be in the arena, you're a person of service. Look at what you can do. Maybe it's not becoming a doctor. Maybe it's not being a doctor. Maybe it's getting that master's degree so that you can have access and placement to bring somebody on board. Be willing to push for that education, man. It's daunting. It's a pain in the ass too. It's not fun to wake up at 4 a.m. or go to sleep at 2 and do extra work, but it's worth it and you're worth it. You absolutely have to be able to utilize it, because otherwise people are just going to say, oh, you're just well-read, Brian. You're just well-read. Yeah. Like, nah, dog, I got the experience and I've got the know-how. Like I've learned so much from your presentations on top of everything that I've done versus some of the places I've gone to and sat down with some doctors. Because at the end of the day, a doctor, he still has to continue learning. And if he hasn't read the books that have been published in the last couple of years, because he's resting on his laurels, resting on the data and information that got him that doctorate, it's like, okay, you're not keeping up to speed, man. You're not up to date. You're useless to my generation of guys, because you're dealing with information from fucking pre-GWAT. Like, what do you bring to the fight?
And that's been like part of my journey, is like getting through to humans facing imposter syndrome. Cause like, dude, I've literally held workshops and I educate doctors and chiropractors and ENTs all the time. And I just go, you guys know, like, I'm a dumb football player, right? And you're learning from me. Like, you just like, and I like, it's just like friendly chirps, but like, that's just weird that this niche of breath and physiology, and like, I can't talk about those things without talking about philosophy and what really stresses us and trying to get out of stress faster, and why I'm in the cold and hot space, and why I'm in the breath space, and like why I'm in the sunlight, and like it's return, like if we can return to natural patterns, which our life and our hobbies and our passions and our service have taken us out of, and we've sacrificed. If we can get back to this natural neutral, and we can start pushing like those behaviors and repeating those behaviors, now it's like, okay, now we can reintroduce our monster to the modern world.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important, because it's like, if you get your sleep under control, if you learn the breathing, if you get out of all this crazy stimulus and sunlight, or like electricity and natural light and frequencies and stuff. But all I'm talking about is returning to nature, getting outside more, breathing slower, breathing like in match of metabolic and respiratory match, working out and moving and connecting with a tribe and all this. And then like get out of the heat and the AC. Like you're a bubble, you're in your little bubble wrap, like baby bullshit. You need to explode. And like the sauna and ice is an awesome stretch to return some of like that comfort zone. Or like expand that comfort zone. And that's all I'm doing. And we just do it unconsciously, because all these things were gifts from the millions of minds that collaborated to make all these things we live in. But it's like, take control back. That's why I say I start with awareness and start with consciousness. Like, because I argue, like, when you're changing, like if you don't like where you're at and anything, or you don't have meaning, like you haven't attached meaning. It's like if you want a meaningful life, make everything meaningful. Well, why I hydrate in cold tub and get up and I work out? Well, I want to have the most energy and be the best dad, but I have to have meaning to why I do the cold tub and training. And like, I have to, and like, why am I doing stupid, like zone 2 cardio and all this stuff? Well, hey, I want to walk my daughter down the aisle in 20 years. Like, you don't put these massive amounts of weight that really do happen in the micro decisions of the day. But if you like, I just want people to like love what they do and love why they do it, because there's a reason. But when we do, like, when we go through the motions with no heart, like the execution's lower, like the passion and the enthusiasm and the results are all lower. So it's just like, okay. But like in the breath world, like I teach meaning and education, because every breath is in essence helping or hurting you. So like, let's become aware of when breath is hurting me or stimulating me, because 95% of what I do is on this side. I spend time at rest, breathing in through the nose. I extend the exhale. Like I get the breath a little bit lower and fuller, and I slow the pace down, because pace ends up being the trump card.
Yeah.
And like, that's like a fast track through it. Cause like I can talk about location of movement, shallow. A lot of the breath world is built on like respiratory rate times tidal volume. And that's how you get like your pace and your efficiency. But we can't measure tidal volume very easily. So I just say full, and I do mobility to get access to a bigger lung and stuff like that. But just consciously taking fuller breaths and lower breaths. Again, the biggest part of the lung being at the bottom, breathing in through the nose is a smaller orifice. And so it'll take, like, in essence, it'll slow the breath down. And all these things are just chasing that wind chime analogy, because pace is king.
Yep.
And so like, even if I'm breathing in through my mouth at like 20 seconds in, 20 seconds out, like, it's like, that's going to calm me the fuck down. But Brian said mouth is sympathetic and there's a hierarchy, Yeah. And I cause like some people take one fact or one thing I say as gospel. Like that I was training Ohio State's baseball team, and like they call me nasal breathing Brian at the time. And because I said that was good. Yeah. And the coolest thing is that like majority of the team taped their mouth like after I taught it, and like they kind of agreed upon it. And the next day, 6 guys came back and said, like, I had the craziest dreams I've ever had, or I slept so good. And then like some guys didn't get through the night. And so it's just like seeing that in real time. Those are my feedback, my feedback points like on the deal. But I think that is just more and more examples of I can't remember where I was going before I got on the Ohio State tangent.
That's all right. That you're experiencing what I like to call a sponsorship moment. TBI.
Feed me. Yeah.
Oh man, dude, Brian, I can't thank you enough for coming in. If guys want to learn more about your company and your podcast, like where you're at, what is the name of your podcast?
So the podcast is called Chasing Edges. It's been on the shelf for a year, but it's coming back. I got 6 episodes loaded. We were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I talk to like doctors, athletes, high performers, anybody that I want, selfishly, I want to learn from, and share. But again, it's about helping humans and keeping people curious. And my my articulation and my own self talk to that is you got to keep chasing edges. And so like, that's how it got kind of birthed and put, but like, there's some like fun things on there with like Dr. Serrano. I'll do a Q&A and try and like personalize it to people where like, that's where I like to help. And I don't know if you do anything in that format, but, taking questions from your humans and then having doctors answer, like good doctors answer. That's probably been the most fulfilling and beneficial thing for me. But that all that's coming back, and not to keep like hyping, like I just something I enjoy doing, selfishly and selflessly. So, and then Breathing for Performance is my company, breathingforperformance.com. You can reach out there. I'll try and help as many humans as I can. If you got referred from the podcast, just chirp me and I'll try and make as much as I can happen for free. And we'll go from there. But again, dude, I appreciate you having me on. I didn't even finish some of my systems because I'm a ranter, but all
good. We'll do a part 2.
Like I'm on the road for 10 days, but then I'm around all the time, and I'd love to hop on. I thoroughly enjoy talking to you.
Hell yeah, Brian, it's a pleasure. And to all y'all listening, please just go ahead and pause, go to the episode description. All the places Brian mentioned where you can find him and get a hold of him are right there. Or just look right here and you'll see his link for Instagram. You'll find his website. Thank you all for tuning in. Brian, thanks again, and we'll see you all next time. Till then, take care.
Easy.
If you like what we're doing and you're enjoying the show, don't forget to share us, like us, subscribe.